Hey, y'all, welcome back again. Back to Rock and Recovery. Today's guest, our second guest for today, is Jennifer Chase. She's owner and founder of Rise Addiction, I think. So why don't we just get her up here and she can tell her herself. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Same to you. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and everybody else a little bit about yourself, and we'll just go from there. Tell your story.
Love to. I am the owner of Rise Addiction Life Coaching. I'm located in Boise, Idaho, and today I work with families of addicts trying to navigate sort of what that looks like to help their addicted loved one or to relearn some of the family systems that one used to sort of live in while somebody was in addiction. But my roots come from I am a granddaughter of an alcoholic, a great granddaughter of an alcoholic, probably a great great granddaughter of an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. And so I come from a long line, if you will, of dancing sort of in the disease of addiction and specifically alcoholism. I did have a grandma that was an addict, an opiate addict in the 50s before that was kind of a thing. But this goes down both generations in my family. So as far back as I've been able to find on my mom's side and my dad's side. And unfortunately, I'm a statistic of that says that 1 out of every 4 girl and 1 out of every 6 boy that kind of is raised in that kind of addiction is sexually abused. And I was sexually abused by my mom's dad growing up. And so there were a lot of things going on in my world that forced me at a pretty young age to kind of say, okay, there's a common denominator to this, right? So the abuse I suffered, my dad's alcoholism, my mom's and my relationship has always been very, very complicated. And so, if she spoke English, I spoke French. And growing up, that was very confusing. And the common denominator to all of these sort of events was me, right? Like I thought I was the problem. I thought I was broken. I grew up in a pretty affluent home. And so there was not, from the outside, the view that the world had of my family, I had it all, right? I had all the things that you would hope to have in your childhood. And yet from behind the front door, it was very different. And I was suffering and I didn't know how to make sense of all of that. The only thing that made sense was that I was broken and unlovable. And so my childhood was wild. It was a wild ride of trying to make sense of a lot of things. And when I ended up getting married and having my babies, and I believe like the only thing that was important to me was breaking the chains of this thing and changing the trajectory of my children's lives. Like I wasn't going to add another generation. I wasn't going to do this again. Like it was the only thing important to me. And unfortunately, in 2003, I was diagnosed with a hemorrhaging brain tumor that caused some nerve damage when they removed it. And that led me on my path to opiate addiction. As soon as I was introduced to opiates, there was this out of body almost experience that I had that it was like, oh, I'm finally going to be okay.
Were they prescription?
They were. Yep. So I used for years and years and years, and I never took anything that I wasn't prescribed. I was, early 2000s in sort of what's now considered the opiate epidemic in America. I was grossly overprescribed. And so it just led me on this path.
For me, my addiction, it was basically covering up feelings, feelings that I didn't want to deal with. And I was the opposite. I was the high-speed chicken feed, so M3TH. And, and I started at a young age, but then I went through high school and I was active in sports and everything else. And then I caught a prison case, and then 20 years of prison, it made me just a better addict, a worse criminal and a better addict.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's different for everybody. And, I grew up in a decent family too. I grew up on a farm. My mom's side was prominent in our town, you know, and my dad's side, well, the person I call my dad, no addicts in that family at all. I mean, we're all farm boys, you
Yeah.
know, so it was really strange, you know, just to see how it affects everybody's walk. It affects everybody, every walk of life.
Well, and I think you maybe said the most important thing that can be shared today, which is I use substance to change the way that I felt, right? Like if I can um impress upon your listeners, or just the random folk in America that maybe doesn't have to deal with addiction, this one thing is that substance is not the problem. Substance is the solution to the problem,
It's the
right?
band.
And the problem varies, I think, based on individual, but it's things like shame and not feeling enough and feeling like a square peg in a round hole. All the things that can happen inside of us, the feelings. I remember when I was in college. So remember, I wasn't going to be an alcoholic. I wasn't going to do it like the generations before me. But I started to drink because, my God, I just wanted to belong, right? I just wanted to find my people, and my people were drinking. So I started to drink, and I put together in college that if I drink more, I will feel a different way, right? If I drink more, this boy will like me. If I drink more, I'll be less anxious. If I drink more, something about the way that I feel inside of me will be changed. And that is the root of addiction. Like, if anybody can hear me, substance is not the problem. Substance is the solution to the problem. So if you just merely stop using substance, but you don't seek solution to the actual problem, you will always go back to substance.
You know, and I find, you know, for my recovery, I did something totally different. See, so a little bit about me is I quit because I found my wife hanging in her closet. She is also an addict, but she dealt with a lot of depression. And when I found her, everything meant something different to me. That I would rather deal with my emotions and feelings than deal with an addiction that took her life, basically, you know. And now I talk to people about it. I talk to people about the way I recovered because, yeah, it's unusual, but I talk to people. That's the biggest form of recovery for me, is sharing my experiences.
Yep.
And that keeps me sober too. That keeps me in recovery. And you know, for me, I have to, if I'm going through a bad, let's say a bad area, you know, something's in my head and I get stuck in my head, I have to work it out myself before I can even talk about it, you know, but I still talk about it.
Well, and to me, there's a million different ways to recover. I'm in the boat that it's like, I love whatever works for you, right? Whatever that is, I love it. But I think the common denominator to all of it is this idea that I've got to work through the actual problem and not use substance to deal with it, right? So whether that's connection, whether that's sharing and being a service and trying to help somebody else that's still suffering, or whether that's the room of AA, like there's a million ways to do it. But the common denominator, the thread to it all, is that I understand that substance is not the problem, and I'm going to go seek solution to the actual problem.
You know, and we bottle up all these emotions because they're still there. Let's face it. Everything, all of our problems are still there. We just now got to face them once we start getting sober and in recovery. Now we got to face them all again. You know.
So I've been going through a period of time of my anxiety is anxieting, right? Like so you shared that they don't go away. They don't. So I was merely masking them with substance. And yes, I've done a tremendous amount of work, and I have different coping skills now. But the truth is, when my anxieties, it just does, right? It's just something, and I have to deal with it without being numb, without using substance. It's painful, it's hard, and I can still, persevere through it. It's just a different idea. I think a lot of the times us addicts believe that life is only hard for us, like we're the only ones experiencing hard. And I tell people all the time, like, no doubt recovery is hard, right? Like dealing with your anxieties without any help or substance, hard, right? dealing with the shame and the difficulties of how you potentially affected other people's lives, especially for me, this is my kids, right? Like looking at how I affected my kids' life is really hard. But the other thing is really hard is being a drug addict. Super hard. Not a lot of fun.
The guest I have, she's actually in the chats right now, Haley. We just talked about that life in addiction was so much freaking, it was not fun. It really wasn't, and recovery is not easy.
No.
Because it's a whole lot easier. Sad.
Today I get to choose my heart, right? Today I get to choose my heart. Whereas before I got sober, it was choosing for me what that looked like. And I think it's important for people that are like contemplating getting sober or are in the first little bit of it, that is, as we all know, really, really hard. Like, I promise you, if you keep choosing the hard that leads you to peace, potentially, right? Leads you to dealing with all of the things that substance became the option for. I promise you, if you choose that hard, one day you will wake up and leap out of bed, right? Because you love your life. And it is the hard that you experience is so much easier than the hard that you experienced when you were using substance.
And now you're the owner of Rise Addiction. So what's that?
Yeah. So I'd love to tell you a little story to explain why I do what I do. So for years after I got sober, I worked in the treatment field. I worked at an outpatient program that I actually went through myself when I first got sober. I loved it, right? I loved the people. I loved the experience. It was just so fulfilling for me. But let me tell you a little story. So I was about 6 months sober, and my husband and I are driving down the street, and I'm just on cloud nine. We call it like the pink cloud, right? In the rooms of AA. And I just am like, this connection that I was building with these people, I had been yearning for my whole life. I was learning about what the real problem was, and I was excited to like tackle all of those things. And I was just high on life. And I'm telling him all of this. And I look over to him and his face is just dead. And I was like, what's wrong? And he's like, I'm really happy for you, but I've been doing this for 14 years too. And where do I have any, like, where are my people? Where do I get help? And it was like smacked me in the face. And I wasn't working in, and I was just barely sober, but And as I progressed, part of my story that I didn't share is that when I found out when my son was 17 years old that I had inadvertently, of course, become his drug dealer. And he had also become addicted to opiates. So I had this range of, I was the daughter of an alcoholic. I was the addict myself. I'm the mama of the addict. And I felt some responsibility to help my husband's seat in all of this too, right? So not only did I have this wide perspective of understanding, but I also felt compelled to kind of help the space where my husband couldn't find any help. And so I just felt led to go work with families. And I think one of the reasons I can help be effective is that, especially for family members that aren't addicts themselves, I help them sort of get into this brain and understand my addict way of thinking, if you will, but from a perspective of, I understand what it's like to be a mama, right? I understand what it's like and the impacts of being a daughter of an alcoholic. And so about a year and a half ago, I started my own business and went that direction. And it is the most fulfilling, beautiful experience of my life. Being able to help people, because this is the thing, as family members, we can either contribute to the problem or we can contribute to the solution.
It's that boundaries thing,
right?
Big in recovery.
And we don't get to rescue and enable and then sit back and be a victim to how this is all playing out, because we're contributing to it, right? We're part of this. And so the goal is there's two goals. One, contribute to the solution rather than the problem, and find your own peace, regardless of what's kind of happening on the periphery and things that you can't control. And watching people navigate this thing and find their peace and joy is just an honor.
So I know in my experience that a lot of us have like codependency issues. I mean, let's face it, whether it's a trauma bond or trauma induced, or just because you can't manage being alone or lonely with yourself,
Yeah.
a lot of us have codependency issues. And I
Yeah.
know I want to touch on that subject because I know you're probably big in that area also.
Yeah.
Because when we start out in sobriety, well, we're addicts, we don't feel very good about ourselves. We don't. We're
Correct.
doing the next thing, doing whatever we can to make friends and be the cool person and have friends. We want to feel included, like you were talking about. We want to feel included. And now every little thing is like, oh, we latch onto something. We don't want to let it go. What does a healthy relationship in codependency look like?
Well, codependency is interesting, and I talk a lot about this with clients. Like, to me, it's not helpful when we're talking about, well, it's not helpful for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the stigma that our society has around substance addiction. Because the truth is, there is no difference between a gambling addiction, a sex addiction, a substance addiction, a food addiction, a love addiction, or a codependency addiction, right? We are doing it for all of the exact same reasons, which is I am compulsive thinking in my brain because I'm trying to control an outcome, deal with my fears, right? I'm trying to deal with something by this compulsive brain that's doing its thing. And so for me, it's really important when we're talking about building empathy and compassion for one another is understanding like we are way more alike than we are different. And you spoke to something. A lot of the times people suffer with both a substance addiction and a codependency at the same time. But I can also say when somebody stops using substance, a lot of the time their codependency gets significantly worse. And that was my case. So when I got sober, and my son was still using. My son actively used for another 3 years after I got sober. My compulsive codependency became like a rabid dog because I just was trying. I couldn't deal with the discomfort, right? I couldn't deal with the pain. I couldn't deal with the fears. And so I just started trying to control outcomes and fix it and make it better and all the things. I think the important thing to understand about codependency is the opposite of codependency is this thing called interdependency. And the idea behind interdependency is that I am in charge of my well-being, right? And I allow other people in that connection with other people to provide. They don't do it for me. They provide something that I can't provide for myself, right? But I don't use that relationship for me to be whole one way, like not at all, not even a little bit whole, right? Like I take care of me. I am in charge of my responsibilities. I'm in charge of my resentments. I'm in charge of my well-being. I'm in charge of my happiness. And those relationships can be interactive, but my wellness is not dependent on it, if that makes sense.
It absolutely.
And so that's not, especially as women, dare I say, we aren't raised to be that kind of human. We are raised to be codependent with our children. We are raised to be codependent in relationships. We are raised to be codependent with our parents in a lot of ways. And so it's really, excuse me, what I'm about ready to say, if your audience does not swear, but it's really unmind-fucking what we've learned for most of our lives in childhood.
It's retraining ourselves.
Yeah. For sure.
And a lot of that is just once you start feeling better about yourself, once I start feeling better about myself, I noticed that I needed less of that codependent person, because what happens? We latch on and we start accepting things. So we treat people how to teach us, and we're teaching them that they can treat us any way they want to, and we're still going to take it.
Well, that's the thing about codependency is oftentimes I've taught somebody how to treat me, right? I'm like, I'm like the mom that has a 3-year-old and it's like, don't do that. I swear next time don't do, I'm not kidding. I'm going to count to 3 and then, oh, wait, but I'm going to start over. Right. And so I've taught people that my boundaries have no meat behind them, that I'm not actually going to stick to it. And then it goes awry and then I get mad about it. I get resentful about it, but I'm the one that I didn't do what I said I was going to do to begin with. Right. And go ahead.
That's the thing is once we teach people how they can jump over the fence or go across the boundary with no repercussion.
Yeah.
Then what good's a boundary? There is no boundary then.
No.
Just, and nothing happens.
And then resentment, right? We get mad that they didn't listen to our boundary. I think this is super interesting. So one of the things that I teach people, I was a very black and white thinker before I got sober, right? Very, very black. It was good or bad. It was the, no pills or 20 pills, right? Like it was just very black and white thinking, very rigid thinking. And so I try in my sobriety to not think that way anymore and to live in the gray. But this is the thing. Boundaries are black and white and rigid. So I tell people, if you have a 20-year-old living at your home and your curfew is 1:00, then 1:01,
doors being locked.
As rigid as that sounds, that is when they no longer can come into your home, right? Because as an addict, when you let me in at 1:01, the next time I'm going to push it is 1:04. And then I'm going to push it to 1:15. And then before you know it, you're up at 3:00 in the morning and your child's still not home. Because what this brain says is if you give me an inch, I can work you into a mile.
That's absolutely correct. And it's part of enabling too, because if an addict doesn't need to lose anything, whether it be food or anything else, if they don't have anything to lose, then why am I going to stop?
Yeah.
If you're providing a house, food, everything else, why really? That's why prison is a great place for addicts because they need everything they got there and it's so readily available there too. But
I tell people nobody's going to get sober until they hit their pain tolerance, right? So pain, if you think of, a lot of addicts, my pain tolerance while using opiates, let's say was like an 8 or a 9, right? But let's say I was a young kid and I had a mama at home and her pain tolerance was a 4. Well, I never got even close to the 8 because my mama took care of it at a 4, right? And so it's like, well, it should be enough. Shouldn't they want to work? Well, no, because they don't have to, right? They're good where they are. They're not experiencing any discomfort. You are.
Right.
But what transcends that and what do I mean by contributing to the solution is having enough courage for you to experience 5, 6, 7 in order to let your addict get to the discomfort of an 8. So they're like, this doesn't work for me anymore, right? The consequences have outweighed the benefits now, and I don't want to do this anymore.
Absolutely. And, but once we start sticking to those boundaries, then that means we're the problem. Once we say no that one time and we mean our no means no, we become the problem. Oh, now I will happily be that problem. From now on, that's me. I will be that problem.
Well, and find somebody to work with like me, right? That can be supportive with you as you're going through that part so that you don't, when somebody gets mad, it's their job to get mad. They desperately want you to be uncomfortable enough that you back down off of the boundary, right? So the madder they get, and they know that you're tipping your pain tolerance. And so their anger, the hope is that backs you down off of this boundary that you're holding. So that's why it's important to find professionals and have somebody kind of help you walk through some of these stages.
100. I 100% agree with you. And, some of the hardest boundaries that we actually can keep are with people that we care about. Those ones know the secret ins and outs of every single boundary. They know the ins and outs and how to get to us. Those people that we care about,
they know
those boundaries, and they will use that. And when it happens, it sucks.
I share this I share this story. So this was true before I even got sober. But my son, I knew he was marijuana probably around 14 or 15. He struggled with his own mental health stuff, and then of course he had an addict for a mama. So how that sort of that trauma manifested, but he would just say the word suicide, or he would just start saying the S in the word suicide. And I would literally give him whatever he wanted. There was even a time in my home I was still using where we gave him a like a dab pen to help with his anxiety because he was saying he was going to commit suicide, right? Like I was so powerless and my fear was wrapped into this idea that my son was going to die. And every time he needed for me to be back down, he would just say, I'm going to go commit suicide. And this went on for a long time. And it was not until I got sober. I think I had been sober for a couple of years, maybe. He comes over to my house one day. We had kicked him out of the house already. So he was living on his own, and he had come over and he said, I need you to call my dad. I'm going to go drive my car off of this lake that we have near us. And what changed everything was I looked at him and I said, dear sweet boy, I love you more than anything in the world, but I cannot control whether you drive that car off the cliff or not. I want you to know I love you, but I can't control it. And can I share with you, my son has never, not one more time, said to me that he was going to kill himself as a tool, if you will. I'm not saying that he didn't feel that way, right? And I believe, I mean, coming from addiction, I know that he probably thought about suicide a lot. But he used it because he knew he could get me uncomfortable enough. I would do whatever he wanted me to do if he would just say the word. And that day I took the power back in that situation. And he no longer does that, which I'm so grateful for. It's awful, by the way.
We got it down there. Look at you go, Mom. And, how can you, okay, so doing this, you do the same thing in a different style, helping people. How do you know when you helped those people start getting to you? We carry a big burden, honestly. Because if we care for people, then even the little things we still care about. Do you treat it as, how do you tell when you start to lose yourself?
It's interesting. And I think this is a really pertinent question right now, because I got to be really raw and honest with you. About 2 hours ago, I learned that one of my clients' children overdosed and died this morning. This is a gentleman that I worked with in the treatment world and then have worked with his parents for years and years and years. And I've spent some time this morning just devastated, right? Devastated for them, devastated at how much I hate that this disease is prevalent in people's lives, right? And so days like today, I'm going to have to go on an extra long run today, right? Or I'm going to have to do some extra long journaling about some ways that I'm feeling. But for the most part, I think I recognize that I am just a medium, if you will, between somebody's fears and somebody's faith.
So where do you draw the line of, like, you leave work at work and you leave home at home and you don't prostitute? How do you draw that line?
It's a hard answer for me a hard question for me to answer, because this is always, I think, one of the reasons I've had some longevity in this world is because there's something in me that is able to sort of do that. But I'm never I never like walk out of work and I'm like, whew, that day's done, right? Like some of these experiences, it is who I am. Good or bad, I think I've been put on this earth and walked through some really challenging things in my life to be right here helping people today. But there is a part of me that is able to not not to become the fiber of who I am, if that makes sense. But I don't ever look, if I ever lose sort of the empathy and compassion, I'm dealing with life and death every single day. I'm dealing with my own life and death every single day, right? When I choose my heart, I deal with the fact that I don't know what I don't have a crystal ball to say what my son's life is going to look like in 10, 15, 30 years. And so the reality of addiction is that we're talking about life or death. I think that that's why I have the urgency to talk about it, and why I will scream it from the mountaintops. Is it's like we've suffered enough. All of us, the families, those of us that suffer with addiction ourselves, the impact that it has had on society, like we've suffered enough. And so for me, talking about it and being part of this world is really a gift. And my hopes is to just untangle one family or one person. But I am able to sort of not allow it to permeate ever fibers of my being.
For me, I always tell people that anxiety, that we're never guaranteed tomorrow.
Mm-mm.
Never guaranteed it. And the best we can do is live today for today.
Yeah.
And just, set yourself up for a good tomorrow, but we don't know what it holds. So a lot of my anxiety comes from thinking about future.
All of your anxiety comes in. This is the thing, right? Depression is about the past and anxiety is about the future. And I shared with you, like, my anxiety has been anxieting lately, and it is all future tripping, every single bit of it. And that's
to live for today. I'm like, Jason, duh.
Yeah.
And if we really honestly take a look and just step back, we get anxiety over situations that we have no control over anyway.
And there may or may not even happen.
And it's definitely not going to happen the way I think it's going to happen, the bad way, 90% of the time. It's just us overthinking.
Yeah. I think one of the ways that I help myself in those situations is do a body check, right? So oftentimes in meditation, you've probably seen or heard of the meditations. It's like relax your toes and then relax your calf, right? And you work all the way up. I think about this from an anxiety standpoint, which is I'm okay, right? I'm okay right now. Right now I have a roof over my head. I have food in the pantry. My children are okay. Like right now I am okay. And that helps me kind of do, if you will, a system check or a body check, which helps me get out of thinking about the future as much. But I'm not perfect at it by any means. And I do still struggle with anxiety.
And we're talking on that topic about caring for people. I care for people. Mm-hmm. I get to care for people now.
Yeah.
Because while I was an addict, I really didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
What I cared about, whether you're going to buy this or if I was going to go sell it to somebody else, equipment wasting my time, know. And now it's like, please waste my time because I got nothing else to do, except for talk to people. That's what I do is I talk to people. And
it's like a living amends, right? Like I sucked from society. Like I sucked out life from society, if you will, right? I was not bringing anything positive into the world. I was only removing things, right? And so now I look at it from the perspective, it's like, I got some time to make up for, right? I need to be constantly, and I think about this with my kids, like my kids, I can't go back and change their childhood. I can't, right? But I can get up every day and do hard as a living amends to them and a show, if you will, that I love them now in a way that I wasn't able to love them then.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about addiction? And what is it? And families?
Well, I think the biggest misconception about addiction is that if we wanted to, we would just stop. Right? If we loved you enough, we would just stop.
That is the biggest.
I tell people, like, my God, I wish that the day that I found out that I was inadvertently my son's drug dealer, that would have been the day, right? Because in that mindset, you would say, well, you clearly don't love your son, which is the opposite. I love my children more than anything in this world. And so the idea of if they loved you enough, if they respected you, if they cared about you, they would just stop is false information.
Love ourselves enough.
I tell people, yeah. And there's this, I think one of the reasons that makes addiction so difficult is there's so many different components, right? There's the physical component. There's the mental component. There's the emotional component. There's just there's so many different tentacles, if you will, in trying to get sober. The truth is, I've told people all the time, like as hard as this is to say, that if I was holding my children and we were drowning, I would have stepped on their heads to get to oxygen. Like that's how bad I wanted drugs. That's how bad I needed substance, right? Substance was a solution to all of the pain that I had experienced. And so I think that that's really important. Look, if your loved one is struggling getting sober, it's not because they don't love you. It's because they can't love themselves yet. Right? So many of us get into addiction because of some trauma that we've experienced or some shame that we have. And then we just compound the shame over years. So it starts as a little dime and it ends up as a humongous boulder, right? Some of it self-induced, but we have so much shame by the time we're ready to get sober that it's very, very difficult. The thing I would say about the misconception for families is that your rescuing or enabling is making somebody, helping them feel loved or giving them worth or part of the solution, right? It is the opposite of the solution. You're actually, I used to work for a gentleman who wrote a really amazing book, by the way, if you're struggling, it's called Unhooked. One of the things he says in that book is that every single time you rescue, you are literally hammering a nail in your loved one's coffin.
There's something else I always say. Every addict is going to quit. Every single addict, one way or another, is going to quit. Whether it's 6 feet under or on your own, you're still going to quit. So why not quit now? Why not quit now? Honestly. And I lost my mom to it. I mean, I didn't lose my mom. I ghosted her for almost 20 years. I didn't want her to see, I didn't want her to be around me. I didn't want to be around her. And, this last Christmas, I actually got to spend time with my family. And that was amazing. And now I moved to Florida just to be closer to my mom. Don't tell her that. Obviously, she already heard it and is laughing right now. But, but the biggest thing I got back was life. Mm-hmm. Life back, And to me, that's priceless. There's no way. There's nothing I want more than that. Nothing.
Yeah. So I'm a quote girl, which sometimes I hear a quote and it's just words, and then other times I in fact have a quote wall back here in my office. But I'd love to share with you one, which is kind of speaks to what you're talking about. It's my favorite quote, and the quote is by Joseph Campbell. It says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." Right. And so if you can imagine for me, and I think for most of us that struggle with addiction, it's like the treasure I was seeking was like peace and serenity and love and connection and worthiness and value and all of those things that we all want in our lives. But because for whatever reason, and my trauma was pretty obvious, but some people, it's just growing up with shame, right? Feeling like a square peg in a round hole. What's inside of that cave is so scary, right? Like you got stalagmites and spiders and bats and all kinds of shit that led me to be really fearful of going inside of that cave to find that treasure. And that's the thing about addiction is we got to walk through some fear to go into the cave, but the treasure is so far and above worth any experience that you have inside of that cave.
Absolutely. And, being the mother of an addict yourself and being an addict yourself, what was it like trying to deal with your son's addiction?
People ask me what was harder, and that is the easiest question I've ever answered. being a mama of an addict is by far the hardest thing that I've ever done. The thing about my own addiction is, although I realize that, there's a lot I don't have control over and a lot that I am powerless over, there's this itty bitty amount of control in the sense that I can get up today and do what I need to do that is going to help me stay sober tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I can be in charge of making sure that I'm doing all of the things to help me be sober. When you're talking about being a mama of an addict, powerless, the whole way of, like, I don't even know how to describe. Right?
And if you're my mom, she's like one of those things that she needs to fix it and fix it now.
Yeah.
And let me fix it. I can fix it. I'm gonna fix it. It doesn't work that way.
No. And with our kids, it's like from the beginning of time, right? Since we had them, or maybe even since we were pregnant with them, it's a little bit like walking around with an exposed nerve because you love this little being so much, right? And so not only are you experiencing that because they're your child, but then the powerlessness of how this is all going to work. And look, it's not lost on me that I just shared with you that one of my clients lost their children today, right? Like, I've been to a lot of funerals through my work and have said, like, I don't even know if that won't be me someday, right? Like, I understand the life or death of this disease. And so I think, without not even a thought, that being a mama has been the hardest part of this for me.
And on that, being the son, that was an addict of a mom that wasn't, what was harder to deal with? I mean, you going through when in his worst times, was that triggering to you?
No. Only because this. So I share this with other people too. So if you're around the rooms of AA, sometimes you hear really stupid shit. And one of the things that, don't quit before the miracle, I never really understood what that meant. But now I kind of understand it from this. It's like, I looked at his experience, those 3 years when I was sober and he wasn't yet sober. Like, the times that he told me that he preferred me as a drug addict, and I had so much shame that I believed it with my whole heart, right? Like, I hated myself for what I had put him through. I hated myself that I had sort of introduced him to opiates in the first place by just having him around. Like, I had so much shame. But what was different for me in those moments is I believed with everything in my spirit that my son finally deserved me to do hard. Like, I had chosen easy over hard for years and years and years and years. And I believed like that was the best way I could love him. Like, the most complete way to love him was to do hard. And so when he would tell me that he preferred me as a drug addict, it would be awful, right? And I would, but the hard that he deserved me to do, work on my own shit and my own shame so that I didn't use that as a catalyst to relapse. He deserved me to stay sober when it was hard.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think during that period of time, I wasn't triggered. I was just like, it just dug my heels in even more and was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for us until you can do it for yourself.
Kind of like that one of those famous quotes, we'll love you till you can love yourself.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer in, like I said, any form of recovery. I've never been to an AA or an NA meeting. I do not believe the cult of AA. I mean, it works for other people. It's a great program. I'm not knocking it. It's a great program, and it has been known to work. I was one of those people that I don't want you telling me what I need and what I can and can't do. First of all, I'm going to do exact opposite of what you tell me to do. That's second. So don't tell me to do nothing. Oh, wait, now you're challenging me? Oh, you don't. Oh, okay. Now I'll show it to you. I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah.
I was that person. And it was also the easiest place where I could go and get or sell whatever I needed.
No, and this is the thing. So I got sober in the rooms of AA, and have kind of, I think this is the other thing about recovery, that it's not a one size fits all. And I think even in the life of one recovering addict, there can be different seasons, right? About where somebody is and what's working for them in the moment. And I mean this with all of my heart. There's a lot of things about NA and AA that I don't love, right? I don't love. Did I find it a useful place for me to build connections with other alcoholics and addicts that I so desperately needed when I first got sober? Absolutely. And the 12 steps I have found to be very helpful for me in the process of rebuilding my connection with a higher power, figuring out how to deal with some of my shame. And then obviously looking at this from like, how do I continue to be of service to other individuals? This is the thing. I'm not in the rooms very much anymore just because I have a different direction. But I think what I don't love is any like we don't need other alcoholics and addicts to criticize the way that another alcoholic and addict gets sober. What we need is just a big amount of support and love, because this shit is hard enough as it is, that we don't need somebody saying you're not doing it right, or this, we don't need any of that. It's like, can we just all support each other from an authentic place that says you deserve to heal regardless, without judgment, and however you need that to look for yourself.
And people need to realize the past is not who we are.
Nope.
You know what?
I was just on a podcast the other day where a guy feels very strongly to not refer to himself as an addict. And I love that for him, right? Like, that's not where I sit, because the word addict doesn't have any shame for me. And so when I introduce myself as an addict, it's not like I'm like digging myself or putting labels on myself. But if that's the way somebody feels, don't call yourself that.
No, absolutely. If it's going to make you feel better to not call yourself an addict, don't. But don't lie to yourself either.
Yeah, no. No, and for me, like I said, there's no shame attached to it. So it's like, in fact, I kind of think it's a superpower, by the way. Don't tell anyone, but I'm like, I think it's a superpower for me now, and I'm super grateful for it. And so when I tell somebody I'm an recovering addict, it's like, it's kind of a badge of pride, right? It's kind of
I came from the depths of hell.
Yeah.
Now look what I'm at. You can judge me. You can judge my past, but don't judge me now.
But you know what? If you've transcended, and I'm obviously relapse happens. I'm not suggesting anybody when they just stop is going to be sober, unless they keep doing the work to make themselves better every single day. But this is the thing: if you're judging my past, you're the asshole, not me.
Yeah, absolutely, that's what I tell people too all the time. All the time.
You are the asshole, not me, right? Because I'm not that version of me anymore.
Especially if they're in recovery also, and they're judging you on your recovery.
Yeah. To me, it's like, I'm not that version. So if you're judging the 2010 version of me, it's not a me problem. It's a you problem.
That's a you problem.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is a you problem, because I've got a whole I got a whole book full of things that I did in my past. Does that make me who I am today? No, it made me strong enough to get through today. That's about it. Judge me from the time I got sober until the time I freaking leave this earth. That's where you can judge me from.
Yep.
Everything else, that was who I was, not who I am.
Yeah, and I always think it's interesting, those folks. It's like, let's really peel back the curtains, right? And from your glass house, how perfect you have been over the years. I don't have any room for people that judge addicts. Look, the truth is, we all use substance as a solution to something. And most of us, I can just talk about myself. I use substance because what the adults in the room allowed to happen to me when I was a child.
Yeah.
Right. Again, that is not a me problem. That is a them problem. But I use substance as a solution to that. And so at any time we're judging an addict, I think it's misplaced judgment, because all of us were just trying to survive. None of us became addicts because we thought, well, this will be fun. Right? Yeah, 20 years in jail, or burn down our relationships, or ruin my life financially. Like, we all became addicts because substance was the solution to something that had happened to us. And so for me, even looking at that, the stigma of that as a society, I think we need to look at, because I don't know about you, but I've never met more compassionate, empathetic, loving, creative, smart, resourceful bunch
I've
of
never
people than
had
addicts.
a recovering addict that wouldn't give you the shirt off their back.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Never do
Yep.
anything, go out of their way, hundreds of miles out of their way to help you
Yep.
or the next struggling person.
Yep. And I understand how addiction can be frustrating, right? In the sense that that's obviously when we're in our addiction, we act outside of our core beliefs and core values. And that impacts people, and never to say we aren't responsible for that, because we are, right? The things that we did in our addiction, we are responsible for. But if we can get past how it's manifesting and look at the human being, then I think we can start transcending the stigma of addiction.
Absolutely. 100%. Couldn't said it better myself. Well, our time's coming close. Is there anything else you want to say about addiction, recovery, codependency, anything else?
I just want to say my website is www.riseaddictionlc.com. And I work with people all over the country and even some in Canada. And this is the thing, we all deserve peace, whether you have an addict in your life or you are the addict, you're the mama or the sister. Like the truth about this thing is life is too short and we deserve peace. And so if you are in a situation right now, specifically with the family, you have a loved one that's an addict and your peace is being stolen on the daily, please reach out. It doesn't have to be to me, but find your people, find the people that understand. See, that was what my husband was trying to say all those years ago, which is when I got sober, I got community, right? I got connection. I got people that understood my shame and understood that I was acting outside of my core beliefs and core values. And that's not who I was. He didn't have his people. And so if you are a family member right now, like find your people. I have a lot of things that I do and services that I provide that help with that. If that's something I can be helpful with, but there are also, sorry.
What's your website again?
It's www.riseaddiction, RISE addiction, the letters LC.com. And on there, there's a contact me or connect with me that will shoot me your information. And even if you're hearing me today and you're like, hey, just want to say, hey, or whatever, contact me on my website and we can be in touch.
Awesome. And I, again, thank you for coming on here on such a short notice, literally, really short notice. I appreciate it. You don't know how grateful I am to connect with people like you and many others. And until next time, I hope you all keep rocking your recovery. And that's it. Bam.